particularly to Jonathan Wooding, who changed his travel arrangements to get here in advance of the Storm Callum. He came a day early just to be sure that he'd make it to the conference, so thanks a lot to everybody, all the speakers. We all made the effort, but I thought I should mention Jonathan's effort. So, why are we here? We are here. I'm not going to get into a deep theological or meaningful area here, just a practical one, in the sense that some of us are here, I suppose, because we have a particular interest in a speaker or presentation, and others because they love the medieval story, medieval history. For others still, they just love history in all its forms, and they have a natural curiosity about our past. History is such a great way of understanding how we got to where we are now and how change came about. So we're here in a very special venue. St. Eden's Cathedral is special. It's as a place of worship and also as a living piece of history. It's a tangible link to our medieval past. Later in the afternoon, Tadhg O'Keefe will give us a little, he'll show us some of the features that make St. Eden so unique. Here I'd like to thank Dean Mooney, who couldn't be here with us, and Reverend Margaret Sykes and the Select Vestry for being so accommodating and welcoming. This is the second year we've held the conference here, and it's just such a wonderful, special venue. We're very appreciative. As a community, we're very fortunate to have such gems as the castle, this cathedral, the abbey nearby, and other significant features. We're proud of our heritage of Ferns as an early monastic site, our settlement, and as the ancient capital of Leinster. It's our intention to capitalise on our resources, namely our heritage, and our community indeed is a significant resource also. And we intend focusing on our medieval past and developing it as a tourism offering, or developing at least our tourism potential. This conference is the third of our annual conference in Ferns, and the aim is to explore our medieval story. We have a huge story to tell, and these conferences are a way of deepening our understanding and also will help us tell this story. So we're here to listen to people who have a knowledge and a passion for the subject. We look forward to their presentations, and each one is bringing their own special focus on a fascinating period.
But it was always the runes sort of captured my imagination. And if you look at Ferns through a child's eyes, it's everything that movies are made of. You know, it's high kings and accession to high kingships, princes, knights, capitals. It's the stuff that captures the imagination and gets people so interested in the fantastic heritage we have. And I certainly think that's where the seeds were sown for me to become an archaeologist. So Ferns has a bit to answer for in terms of my career choices. When we started excavating the first Anglo-Norman castle in the whole of Ireland, as Catherine quite rightly said, in the Irish National Heritage Park. And we insist on bringing every single student who comes to us to Ferns. And there's very good reason for that, okay? So when we're sitting in this building, this is the first site we bring the students to, and we get them to try and peel it back and understand how sometimes history and archaeology can be subtle, but there's so much there. Okay? And then when we're stood on this site, we remind them that just within a stone's throw, we have an early medieval monastery with connections to David. We have 9th and 10th century high crosses. We have the beautiful St. Mary's, which is the site that's always captivated me the most. I think it's because it's native. I think it's pre-Norman, and I like that story. I like that as another dot on the map that the Irish were doing quite well, building their own churches before the coming of the Anglo-Normans. We have, obviously, Eden's Cathedral from the early 1300s. And that's before you leave the graveyard boundary and decide to walk up through the medieval streetscape and go up to the castle, okay? Which obviously has the ringwork, it has the Marshall Castle, which has connections to Carrick, so it's another reason to bring them here. And the students are always astounded just how much there is to see here and how much there is to feel back. And they walk in thinking they're coming into a relatively recent, by Irish terms, graveyard, and they leave realising there's at least 1,500 years and layers upon layers upon layers upon layers of history just in this small circle. So it really is a beautiful site, and one I've always had a lot of affection for. The other great asset of Ferns, if you sort of leave aside its subsurface archaeology, its built heritage, is the great work that the community is doing in the last few years. So the Ferns Heritage Project, as an offshoot of the Ferns Development Association, has been around for the last 3 or 4 years, since 2015. And they're organising all sorts of initiatives, be it the tours, be it the geophysics, the discovery programme did, be it the work that the OPW is doing at the castle, but especially in terms of community engagement. And that's something I hold a passion for. So I like this idea that they're trying to give as much heritage and information back to the local community as possible, and that everybody in Ferns might become a tour guide, okay? And I know some people would say, well, what's the benefit in that? And of course there's benefits to people's own identity and their self-identification and how proud they are of where they're from, but there's also practical economic benefits. Because we've seen again and again wherever we work, if everybody becomes a tour guide and everyone is passionate about where they're from on a local basis, that's absolutely infectious to tourists. Tourists love nothing more than walking into a coffee shop and being regaled with stories about how Dermot McMurray became High King. They just love that sense of local pride and where they're coming from. So I've no doubt that in time it'll make Ferns an even better destination to come to, okay? The strengths of Ferns in terms of both its community and its built heritage, I think, is well shown in terms of the fantastic programme that the committee have put together today. It includes both domestic and international scholars, some coming from as far afield as Sydney, and also commercial archaeologists and people who are interested in community projects. And I think that's the way archaeology should progress, like public-private partnership with communities. That's a great strength where we sort of accumulate the sum of our parts and build something bigger and better.